joys of Dickens is the richness of language, and I now have the pleasure to introduce two gentlemen to you, David Corballis and John Watson. I'm just going to start by reading very brief bios that Anthony's given me. David taught at Otago Boys High School, where he was head of English and drama. He's worked in the dramatic arts for many years, in television, film and theatre, and is familiar with Charles Dickens' novels. In fact, David is currently delivering a series of Dickens readings at 3 p.m. every Saturday this month at the Dunedin Public Art Gallery. It's another plug. To coincide with the exhibition Haunts of Dickens, watercolours by Paul Braddon from the Dunedin Public Library. John Watson. John is a long-time member of the University of Otago Department of English and is a keen Victorianist. He has also been very involved in local theatre, including the Fortune's recent production of Waiting for Godot, and former students from Otago continue to wax nostalgic about John's readings from the work of Dickens. So it was a pleasure to introduce both of those gentlemen to you, who are now going to give us some readings from Dickens.
Thank you very much. Would it be better if I push this a bit forward? I just wondered, is that okay? Right. I've got a reading somewhere here. This is a reading taken from Pickwick Papers, and it's the United Grand Junction Ebenezer Temperance Association. It concerns the downfall of the hypocritical minister, the Reverend Mr. Stiggins. Although Stiggins was a highly respected member of the Dorking branch of the Temperance Association, Sam Welliott's father, Tony, knows him better. As he tells Sam, "This here red-nosed man, Sammy, was it your mother-in-law? He always brings out a flat bottle as old's about a pint and a half and fills it with a pineapple rum before he goes away." Fills it with pineapple rum before he goes away. And when he comes back, he nearly leaves nothing in it but the cork and the smell. Sam has already said he would poison his rum and water. "I would," said Sam. "I wouldn't be too hard on him at first. I'd drop him in a water butt and put the lid on. And if I found he was insensible to kindness, I'd try the other persuasion." Tony Weller, however, has another idea. Have two friends drop him into the Brick Lane branch meeting. The monthly meetings of the Brick Lane branch of the United Grand Junction Ebenezer Temperance Association were held in a large room, pleasantly and airily situated at the top of a safe and commodious ladder. The president was the straight-walking Mr. Anthony Hum, a converted fireman, now a schoolmaster, and occasionally an itinerant preacher. And the secretary was Mr. Jonas Mudge, Chandler's shopkeeper, an enthusiastic and disinterested vessel who sold tea to the members. Previous to the commencement of business, the ladies sat upon forms and drank tea till such time as they considered it expedient to leave off, and a large wooden money box was conspicuously placed upon the green baize cloth of the business table, behind which the secretary stood and acknowledged with a gracious smile every addition to the rich vein of copper which lay concealed within. On this particular occasion, the women drank tea to a most alarming extent, to the horror of Mr. Weller, Senior, who, utterly regardless of all Sam's admonitory nudgings, stared about him in every direction with the most undisguised astonishment. "Sammy," whispered Mr. Weller, "if some of you these here people don't want tapping tomorrow morning, I ain't your father, and that's what is. Why, this here old lady next to me is drowning herself in tea." "Be quiet, can't you?" murmured Sam. "Sam," whispered Mr. Weller, a moment afterwards, in a tone of deep agitation, "mark my words, my boy, if that here secretary fella keeps on for only 5 minutes more, he'll blow himself up with toast and water." "Well, let him if he likes," replied Sam. "Ain't no business of yourn." "If this here lasts much longer, Sammy," said Mr. Weller, in the same low voice, "I shall feel it my duty as a human being to rise and address the chair. There's a young woman in the next form but two has drunk 9 breakfast cups and a half, and she's a-swearing visibly before my very eyes." There is little doubt that Mr. Weller would have carried his benevolent intention into immediate execution if a great noise occasioned by putting up the cups and saucers had not very fortunately announced that the tea drinking was over. The crockery having been removed, the table with the green baize cover was carried out into the centre of the room, and the business of the evening was commenced by a little emphatic man with a bald head and drab shorts, who suddenly rushed up the ladder at the imminent peril of snapping the two little legs encased in drab shorts, and said, "Ladies and gentlemen, I move our excellent brother, Mr. Anthony Hum, into the chair." The ladies waved a choice selection of pocket handkerchiefs at this proposition, and the impetuous little man literally moved Mr. Hum into the chair by taking him by the shoulders and thrusting him into a mahogany frame which had once represented that article of furniture. The waving of handkerchiefs was renewed, and Mr. Hum, who was a sleek, white-faced man in a perpetual perspiration, bowed meekly to the great admiration of the females, who formally took his seat. Silence was then proclaimed by the little man in the drab shorts, and Mr. Hum rose and said that, with the permission of his Brick Lane branch brothers and sisters then there present, the Secretary would read the report of the Brick Lane branch committee, a proposition which was again received with a demonstration of pocket handkerchiefs. The Secretary, having sneezed in a very impressive manner, and the cough which always seizes an assembly when anything particular is going to be done having been duly performed, the following document was read. Report of the Committee of the Brick Lane Branch of the United King Grand Junction Ebenezer Temperance Association. Your committee have pursued their grateful labours during the past month, and have the unspeakable pleasure of reporting the following additional cases of converts to temperance. Henry Bella was for many years toastmaster of various corporation dinners, during which time he drank a great deal of foreign wine. May sometimes have carried a bottle or two home with him. He's not quite certain of that, but he's sure that if he did, that he drank the contents. Feels very low and melancholy, is very feverish and has a constant thirst upon him. Thinks it must be the wine he used to drink. Cheers! He's out of employ now and never touches a drop of foreign wine by any chance. Tremendous plaudits. Thomas Burton is a purveyor of cat's meat to the Lord Mayor and Sheriffs and several members of the Common Council. The announcement of this gentleman's name was received with breathless interest. Has a wooden leg. Finds a wooden leg expensive, going over the stones. Used to wear second-hand wooden legs and drink a glass of hot gin and water regularly every night, sometimes two. Deep sighs. Found the second-hand wooden legs split in rock very quickly. Is firmly persuaded that their constitution was undermined by gin and water. Prolonged series. Proceedings were cut short by the announcement of a song which Mr. Anthony Hum gave out 2 lines at a time. While it was being sung, the little man with drab shorts disappeared. He returned immediately on its conclusion and whispered to Mr. Anthony Hum with a face of the deepest importance. "My friends," said Mr. Hum, holding up his hand in a deprecatory manner, to bespeak the silence of such of the stout old ladies as were yet a line or two behind, "My friends, a delegate from the Dorking branch of our society, Brother Stiggins, attends below." Out came the pocket handkerchiefs again, in greater force than ever, for Mr. Stiggins was excessively popular among the female constituency of the Brick Lane. "He may approach, I think," said Mr. Hum, looking around him with a fat smile. "Brother Tadger, let him come forth and greet us." The little man in drab shorts, who answered to the name of Brother Tadger, bustled down the ladder with great speed and was immediately afterwards heard tumbling up with the Reverend Mr. Stiggins. "He's a-coming, Sammy," whispered Mr. Weller, purple in countenance with suppressed laughter. "Don't say nothing to me," replied Sammy, "for I can't bear it. He's close to the door. I hear him knocking his head against the lath and plaster now." As Sam Weller spoke, the little door flew open and Brother Tadger appeared, closely followed by the Reverend Mr. Stiggins, who no sooner entered than there was a great clapping of hands and stamping of feet and flourishing of handkerchiefs, to all of which manifestations of delight Brother Stiggins returned no other acknowledgement than staring with a wild eye and a fixed smile at the extreme tip of the wick of the candle on the table, swaying his body to and fro, meanwhile, in a very uncertain and unsteady manner. "Are you unwell, Brother Higgins?" whispered Mr. Anthony Hum. "I am all right, sir," replied Mr. Stiggins, in a tone in which ferocity was blended with an extreme thickness of utterance. "I am all right, sir." "Oh, very well," rejoined Mr. Anthony Hum, retreating a few paces. I believe no man here has ventured to say that I'm not all right, sir," said Mr. Stiggins. "Oh, certainly not," said Mr. Hum. "I should advise him not to, sir. I should advise him not," said Mr. Stiggins. By this time, the audience were perfectly silent and waited with some anxiety for the resumption of business. "Will you address the meeting, brother?" said Mr. Hum with a smile of invitation. "No, sir," returned Mr. Stiggins. "No, sir, I will not, sir." The meeting looked at each other with raised eyelids, and a murmur of astonishment ran through the room. "It's my opinion, sir," said Mr. Stiggins, unbuttoning his coat and speaking very loudly. "It's my opinion, sir, that this meeting is drunk." "Sir, Brother Tadger, sir," said Mr. Stiggins, suddenly increasing in ferocity and turning sharp round on the little man in the drab shorts, "you are drunk, sir." With this, Mr. Stiggins, entertaining a praiseworthy desire to promote the sobriety of the meeting and to exclude therefrom all improper characters, hit Brother Tadger on the summit of the nose with such unerring aim that the drab shorts disappeared like a flash of lightning. Brother Tadger had been knocked head first down the ladder. Upon this, the women set up a loud and dismal screaming, and rushing in small parties before their favourite brothers, flung their arms around them to preserve them from danger. An instance of affection which had nearly proved fatal to Hum, who, being extremely popular, was all but suffocated by the crowd of female devotees that hung about his neck and heaped caresses upon him. The greater part of the lights were quickly put out, and nothing but noise and confusion resounded on all sides. "Now, Sammy," said Mr. Weller, taking off his greatcoat with much deliberation, "just you step out and fetch in a night watchman." "What are you going to do a while?" inquired Sammy. "Never mind about me, Sammy," replied the old gentleman. "I shall occupy myself in having a small settlement with that here Stiggins." And before Sam could interfere to prevent it, his heroic parent had penetrated into a remote corner of the room and attacked the Reverend Mr. Stiggins with manual dexterity. "Come off," said Sam. "Come on," cried Mr. Weller, and without further invitation he gave the Reverend Mr. Stiggins a preliminary tap on the head and began dancing around him in a buoyant and cork-like manner which in a gentleman of his time of life was a perfect marvel to behold. Finding all remonstrances unavailing, Sam pulled his hat firmly on, threw his father's coat over his arm, and taking the old man round the waist, forcibly dragged him down the ladder and into the street, never releasing his hold or permitting him to stop until they reached the corner. As they gained it, They could hear the shouts of the populace who were witnessing the removal of the Reverend Mr. Stiggins to strong lodgings for the night, and could hear the noise occasioned by the dispersion in various directions of the members of the Brick Lane branch of the United Grand Junction Ebenezer Temperance Association.